Hi.
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Hey there.
Hello, everyone.
Salam sejahtera.
各位大家好。
Good evening, my fellow Singaporeans. My name is Chee Soon Juan, and I am the Secretary General of the Singapore Democratic Party.
I'm Dr. Paul Anand Tambyah.
My name is Benjamin Quinn.
I'm Min Cheong.
My name is Robin Low.
My name is James Gomez.
My name is Wayin.
I am Daman Huri Abbas.
I am Tan Ji Se.
I'm Alfred Tan.
Support me and support the SDP.
Please support us, support SDP.
Support the SDP.
Support the SDP.
Support the SDP.
Sokong SDP.
உங்களுக்கு பணி செய்ய நான் காத்திருக்கிறேன்.
支持農能，支持民主黨。
Support us to help build a democratic Singapore based on justice and equality.
I invite you, my fellow Singaporeans, to stand up and walk.
Friends, fellow Singaporeans, Singapore is facing a watershed general election. It is the first time we're having an election in the middle of a pandemic. There are rising concerns about community transmission of the coronavirus. We have had an outbreak in a public housing block in Tampines, which is a great concern to anyone who studies the environmental transmission of viruses. To have the ministerial committee, which is in charge of the response to the virus, distracted by competing in a general election is the peak of irresponsibility. Minister Wong and his team that are handling the outbreak need to be out there in the field, monitoring the investigation, understanding the virology, and the mathematical models built around this cluster in Tampines, instead of walking around Marsiling, trying to explain to the residents why they did not have an MP for the last 3 years, because their MP had abandoned them for a better paying job at the Astana. Not only that, they also refused the help of the SDP, who tried to get the courts to order a by-election to ensure that all the residents of the Marsiling district in Marsiling UT were fully represented in Parliament. We were unfortunately unsuccessful in our bid, but fortunately, the judges decided that we only had to pay our own costs and not the cost of the Attorney General's chambers, as this was such an important issue for Singapore. One intriguing aspect of the AGC's case in the Marsiling by-election lawsuit was the claim that the GRC system was not designed to ensure so-called minority representation in each GRC. Instead, what we heard from the Deputy Attorney General was that the purpose of the GRC system was to bear in mind that GRCs are meant to ensure a multiracial parliament and not a multiracial team in each constituency, in the words of the judgment. Now, this sounds complicated, but the indication given was that during the campaign, the team had to be multiracial, but after the election, theoretically, all the minority MPs could possibly resign en masse, and they would not have to be replaced by by-elections. So Parliament could consist of a single race. Now that, of course, is an extreme situation, but it nicely illustrates the difference between campaigning and after the election. And we know that for a fact. In August 2015, just before GE 2015, then MEWR Minister Dr. Vivian Balakrishnan said, in reply to Mr. Seah Kian Peng, that there was no need to raise the water taxes. Not long after that, in 2017, after the election, there was the largest rise in water rates for years. There is an old joke that's been circulating for some time. A politician dies. Instead of going straight to heaven or hell, a spirit appears to him. The spirit tells him he gets to choose whether he goes to heaven or hell. The spirit tells him that before he chooses, he has to visit both places so that each one will get a fair chance. So he agrees. First, they visit heaven. It looks pretty nice. Big, fluffy clouds, angels singing, playing harps, everyone seeming to enjoy themselves. The politician is pleased, if a little bit underwhelmed. Hell, on the other hand, is magnificent. It's the most beautiful place the politician has ever seen, and everyone there is having the time of their lives. It has a buffet table filled with delicious-smelling food, a beautiful garden, a pool with a water slide, dance floor, massage parlor, and innumerable other attractions. It makes heaven look dull and boring by comparison. I can't believe I'm saying this, says the politician, but I think I'd rather go to hell. Very well, says the spirit, turn around. When the politician turns around, though, hell appears to be completely different than it had been less than a minute ago. All the attractions are gone, everything is on fire, and the people are screaming in agony. I don't understand, cries the politician. This isn't what you showed me before. Well, that was the campaign, says the spirit. Now you're voted in. The news in the last couple of days has been dominated by the PAP's claim that our simple reading of the Straits Times report of March 19, 2019, when the Straits Times reported Minister Heng as citing Mr. Liu Thai-Ker's population projections with the words 10 million and in the same sentence. When Dr. Chi asked Minister Balakrishnan to clarify if this indeed was the government's target, as the SD article was not clear about this, the minister got all excited and claimed that the statement, which was a direct quote from the Straits Times, was a falsehood. What is more important is that he then went on to deny that Singapore would ever get to a 10 million population. Unfortunately, this is an election campaign. And as you know, with previous pre-election statements by the minister and others, such as the statement on the water prices, they're not really that valuable, unless we get enough elected opposition members of parliament to challenge them about this, to hold them to their promises. The Workers' Party did that about the water price, and you can be sure that the SDP will do that with the population numbers if there are any signs at all that the PAP is driving Singapore's population on a trajectory towards 6.9 or 10 million. But you need to get us into Parliament to do that. Unfortunately, this kind of duplicity has become the hallmark of the PAP today. From a social democratic party which worked for the good of the people with leaders like Lim Chin Siong, Lim Hock Siew, Po Su Kai, and the Puducherry brothers, the PAP of today has now become a party which seems concerned primarily with self-preservation. They are almost totally devoid of new ideas and have had to resort to character assassination and personal attacks, as they realize that the plans they have for Singapore are tired, old retreads that cannot convince voters in a post-pandemic world. They have even created artificial entities such as the NCMP scheme to try to perpetuate their monopolistic control of Parliament. I hope I'm right when I say that Singaporeans are wise enough to see through such antics. We do not want to give the PAP a blank check or the illusion that they can change our constitution at will just because the people seem to believe that every single one of the 93 PAP MPs is better able to serve than the alternative parties. The SDP is the premier political party in Singapore in terms of policy papers. As you know, we have a housing, healthcare, population, education, ministerial salary, climate change policy, among others. These policies focus on putting people first. The first 2 yeses of our 4Y1N campaign are paying retrenchment insurance and also a retirement income for seniors. The question keeps getting asked, how are we going to pay for this? Are we, like the PAP, going to raid our reserves? The answer is an emphatic no. We know that Singapore has no oil or gas or diamonds. The reserves we have were built up by the sacrifices of our parents and grandparents who gave up their pensions, gave up cheap healthcare and housing, just so that we would have the funds for a rainy day. We do not want to take $90 billion from the reserves to prop up large Temasek-linked companies or MNCs. Rather, we propose using a larger proportion of the NIRC to put the money back into the hands of the people. Jise is our economics guru, and let me quote him on that. He says, "The investment returns from our reserves will yield more than $37 billion in financial year 2020. The government has put aside 50% of it, that's $18.6 billion, for the 2020 budget. And there's still at least another $18.6 billion left of the investment returns from our reserves. And note, this is not the reserves itself, which are available for use without touching the principal sum of the reserves. It is like using only the interest income from our fixed deposit without touching the principal sum of the fixed deposit. Now, the amount of $2.8 billion for the funds for the seniors can easily come from the balance of at least $18.6 billion, as it represents only 15% of that. There would still be a net balance investment income of $15.8 billion, which can be used to fund the $2 billion retrenchment benefit scheme, as well as the suspension of GST, which is $11 billion in 2020. The total sum of these two initiatives, plus the GST suspension, is $13.3 billion, which is below the unused net balance investment income of $18.6 billion. So the three SDP initiatives, GST suspension, RISE, and Restart, costing a total of $16.1 billion, can be funded by the net balance investment income of at least $18.6 billion. There will still be a net balance of $2.6 billion, which will be added to the reserves, together with land sales revenue, which has averaged $16 billion a year for the past 10 years. The principal sum of the reserves will also grow with economic growth and net investment inflows. The bottom line is, although there are only 11 of us, put us into Parliament and we can demand that the money our parents and grandparents have saved for us can be used for the future of our children and grandchildren. A senior citizen with $500 or a retrenched single mother with $1,500 are far more likely to spend that money locally on food and shopping, or even services like a haircut in places like Bukit Batok, Bukit Panjang, Yihua, than a billionaire putting his millions into the Cayman Islands. It's much better to have the cash in the hands of the people rather than in corporations and hoping that some of it trickles down to the rest of us. This is what the election is all about. Two competing visions for Singapore. A playground for the crazy rich Asian billionaires, with the rest of us driving them around in grab cars or delivering their food. Or a Singapore where we all have a chance to build a better future together, where we respect each other, regardless of race, language, or religion, and where we work together to build a democratic society based on justice and equality. Vote SDP. Majulah Singapura. Thank you.